Welcome back to Crosstalk. I'm your host, Madison Riggs. Like the Mormons of Christianity, the followers of Ismaili Islam suffered years of persecution at the hands of other Muslims simply because of the misunderstandings surrounding their faith. Today, the Ismaili community is a global one, united by their leader, His Highness the Aga Khan, the 49th hereditary Imam. Let's bring in Albina Bamani to discuss the history and beliefs of Ismaili Muslims. Ms. Bamani, thank you for talking with me today.
Hi, Madison. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be able to have this conversation with you.
The history of your faith goes back to the Prophet Muhammad. Can you tell us when Ismaili broke off and why?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very, very important question, so I'm happy to answer it. So, all Muslims share the same basic belief, which is the Shahada, which is a testimony that there is only one God and that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the messenger of God. Now, within Islam, there are two main branches, Shia and Sunni. Shia Muslims believe that the Prophet entrusted continued spiritual and moral guidance of the community to Ali, his cousin and son in law, and to the members of his family. The Sunni position is that the Prophet had not nominated a successor, and that the Quran itself contained sufficient guidance. His Highness the Aga Khan is the 49th hereditary Imam or spiritual guide of the Shia Ismaili Muslims and is in direct lineal descent from Prophet Muhammad, which is, as you mentioned, a 1400-year history of imamat from Imam Ali, our first Imam, to the present Imam.
Why were the original followers persecuted?
That's a great question. I think many religions and many communities throughout time have had to face their own challenges and difficulties. And as religion begins to evolve and spread throughout the world, it faces new challenges. And so I think when it comes to the idea of persecution, I think it just boils down to the fact that in a new context, in interactions and relations with a variety of different communities, there are bound to be areas where work can be done. And so, in regards to persecution, I think it's been a little bit of lack of education, maybe some stereotypes and prejudices against a variety of group of people and of our tradition as well. But I think there's always this hope for a society and future that is more inclusive and that's more welcoming of diversity. And so even today, I think that's the hope for the future.
What other misconceptions or misunderstandings have followers of your faith have to combat?
Absolutely. And so, at least in our context in the United States, there is unfortunately a lot of lack of education around who Muslims are, what Islam is. And I think all Muslim communities kind of face that in their own ways. And so, especially in the United States, there may be some misconceptions and stereotypes around who Muslims are, kind of the expression and practice of their faith, and perhaps a little bit around their history. But I think it's very specific to the context within Muslims are living in, within which Ismailis are living in, and the environment of those areas.
Where else do your theologies differ from mainstream Shia Islam?
Yeah, I think throughout Islam, authority and leadership has been a major point of discussion. And so, even within the Shia branch, there are a variety of different understandings of what leadership and authority looks like and what qualities that may include. So, I think the majority of branches within even the Shia community is around the idea of authority and leadership.
Can you explain the role of His Highness the Aga Khan?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the Aga Khan is the spiritual guide of the Shia Ismaili community. In addition to that, he is responsible for the quality of life of the Ismailis and the communities within which they live, and he's responsible for the religious interpretation of the faith.
How has he changed his role as a leader over the years?
Yeah, I think a very important understanding of the Ismaili community is the fact that we have a present living Imam today, right? So as our world changes, as societies change, we need someone to be able to provide guidance and religious understandings with the new situations and events that we may be experiencing. And so, as time moves on, his guidance also evolves and it includes a lot of the current events and situations that many of the Ismailis are going through. And so, for that, in that way, I think the guidance continues to be pertinent and applicable to our time and place today.
He is a big promoter of what he calls cosmopolitan ethics. What is this?
Yeah, great question. And he mentions it often. So, the cosmopolitan ethic is an ethic of respect that values human diversity. So, in addition to identifying qualities and experiences that unite us rather than divide us as people, we acknowledge and respect our differences. And so, this helps us build a shared kind of understanding and kind of shapes the way that we act in the world.
What are some of your religious practices and how do they impact everyday life?
Absolutely. So, religious practices include attending Jamaat khanas, which are spaces for religious and spiritual contemplation, as well as a reflection with spaces for social, cultural, and intellectual gathering. And so many Ismailis worldwide will attend the Jamaat khana as their main venue of religious and social gatherings. And within it, you have, like I mentioned, spaces for spiritual kind of contemplation and worship, as well as engagement with the intellect, with our cultural, activities and things like that. So the Jamaat Kana is really central to the practice of many Muslims around the world.
The Ismaili faith tries to reach out and convert. Do they try to reach out and convert other people?
No, so I wouldn't say that, right? I think the Ismaili community, and especially the Ismaili Jamaat Kana, is there for the purpose of encouraging a deeper understanding between diverse communities and a faith. And so I think a variety of our programming and a variety of how our spaces are used is in an effort to promote dialogue and in conversation. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of what's most important to think about.
Ms. Bamani, thank you again for speaking with me about your faith.
Thank you so much.